everybody to our Resolve the Unsolved forum. This has been brought to you by Panacea eBiz Consulting. I hope all of you are doing fine and taking proper care during this pandemic times. Obviously, we do understand that many of us are facing challenges as we try to come in terms with the scenario. This is our 32nd free webinar, and look, because business scenarios are also evolving at this point of time. So we chose to focus on a very, very important and a well-known sector, that is operation, that is outsourcing. And as the topic suggests, outsourcing resurgence and opportunity. What has been, I would say, speculated, what has been understood and expected. As COVID-19 slowly settles down and people are back to work, there will be phenomenal opportunity within the Indian subcontinent to take up more businesses from advanced economies which are expected to come across. Today, everybody is familiar that India is one of the preferred outsourcing country by the developed world, and it spans across sectors and all kind of business process groups. Digitally skilled employees in India have grown quite exponentially, and specifically it makes India one of the largest hub and potentially the biggest beneficiary for work from anywhere, which is going to be the norm and is the norm at present. Just to share a few facts with you, in fact, the first outsourcing happened when the Y2K problem, if I'm right, which happened in 2000, when India's IT industry was growing at more than 40% from a very small base and a very low global penetration. And that time it was typically the labor cost arbitrage which was being taken into consequences. There was a second stage which started post global financial crisis around 2008-2009, when India's IT industry has grown and was quite consistently expanding. So this was the second one. And as per Goldman Sachs, it expects that post-COVID, a third, I should not call it a third wave, but a third step of outsourcing and an increasing number of technology roles will globally find their way to India as work from anywhere becomes the new accepted norms. So, having been discussing on these areas, we thought we should have a webinar focusing onto this, which will help our entrepreneurs as well as business promoters to understand who wants to focus on outsourcing or technology-based operations. Today, we have our guest speaker, Mr. Saurabh Chatterjee, with us. Saurabh, welcome to the forum. Saurabh has 22 years of new business development experience in IT services and outsourcing industry. He leads the new business development, marketing, and partnership initiatives at Solution for Microsoft Digital Business and Content Services. He has very strong research and business analysis skills and has been instrumental in client acquisitions, requirement gathering, analysis, engagement planning, and cross-group collaborations. Saurabh has successfully led initiatives in content service businesses in K-12 publishing, newspaper media digitization, library and archive digital conversions, e-book conversions, photo scanning, and archival projects. He is very well versed with international market engagement spanning US, Asia Pacific, UK, and India with prestigious clients like Amazon, Trinity Mirror, Google, Barnes & Nobles, Pearson's, Macro Hill, to name a few. He has had previous He has held senior positions in Xerox India, Global Information Systems and Technova Consulting, and has co-founded a digitization and publishing outsourcing company, Contentra Incorporated, located in US and in New Delhi. We also have Mr. Ravindra Goyal with us. Mr. Goyal, welcome once again. Most of you, as you are familiar with Mr. Goyal, he is a tech entrepreneur. He has been involved with the training and skilling sectors for the last 25 years plus and have helped train and coach thousands of youngsters across various skill sectors. Today, not only is he investing, he is coaching and mentoring. At present, as far as I know, 3 to 4 tech initiatives, or I would say new tech projects. To start off with, Mr. Goyal, I'd request you to say a few words, please.
Hello, everyone. And as this COVID cases in India, probably the Delhi from where we are hosting this webinar. So seems to be that it is all are safe and they're taking adequate care. And probably we have to just keep COVID in mind, I think, for another 6 months to 1 year time down the line. Because what media is saying or what experts are saying, that despite that you are vaccinated or you had the COVID positive report, then also you are susceptible and you may have virus resurgence again. So that's all. Please stay safe, stay home. I'll not say, but yes, whenever government allows, please come out, do your job. Work from home is like a new buzzword now. Probably which I could align with the outsourcing resurgence. In past, it was like I remember we used to call India as a IT capital. Then we became outsourcing capital, and in outsourcing it was majorly on BPO, for which people were not trained, and the private education sector of which I was a part. We trained people who were coming out from like 10 plus 2 level or graduations from BCom side or art side, even engineers or postgraduates, they all looked for wherever the communication was a part, where the communication was all right or could be improved to an extent. Grammatically, they were correct. So a lot of people got employed, and the people who were not expecting a salary of even 7-8 thousand rupees, they got in voice BPO call centers, what we used to call call centers, or BPO came a little later. So they got 20,000, 25,000, and the youth, the youngsters, basically they could build up wealth for themselves, and they had a different lifestyle. Now coming back to like BPO or outsourcing, India has a vast intellectual base. We have largest, like the second largest populated country in the world, and the kind of academia we have, because of population one side and the number of colleges or universities present across, we have very high numbers of educated people in India. So it was not only the coal sport which flourished over a period of time. We shifted to medical, legal, and KPOs, what we used to call. So down the line, whatever we do, and today COVID, like Mr. Saurabh was sharing with us, the acceptance of this kind of job. Like today, the buzzword is work from home. WFH. That's what people are using as a slang. WFH. Now it is a kind of outsourcing only. Somebody who's not coming to your office, somebody who's not utilizing your infrastructure, somebody is not adding to the cost of your company on day-to-day basis. That is kind of like that you have outsourced at a X cost, and he's doing what is required. Uh, in past, if you look at, I can take an example from Ramayana. When Ramchandraji went to the Lanka side, so he did not have any resources. He did not have any kingdom army with him. Then he resourced all the entire army from the local animals and the tribals around. So he did the outsourcing. So I must say the outsourcing in India is 5,000 years old. So it is like the person there. The two parties are there. One who has the infrastructure, one who is looking for it. Now the person who is looking for it has to have an acceptance that yes, this part of my work can be outsourced. This is a predefined, perfect process of my company, which can be given to somebody, and I can monitor it well. And once you have defined the processes, once you have defined the outcomes, once you can monitor them, outsourcing is one of the best key to reduce down your cost structures, to generate more revenues, and to work on the key areas of your business. So probably we have Saurabh with us, and I hope that he'll be sharing more technical data. I remain on to the philosophical side of the talk. So and because people when I interact with the business owners and people around, so we are definitely are not experts of the each and every industry technically, but it is what they are doing, what how it can be bettered over a period of time, what they are not doing, and how they can improve their efficacy or maybe the ROI or other part. That's what we are basically majorly handling. So outsourcing is definitely we advise number of people when something they have engineered over a period of time. So we generally say that reduce your burden, give it to somebody who has infrastructure, who has adequate manpower, and they will do it for you. And you focus in expansion or growth. So I'll welcome Saurabh back
Thank you.
back to Sandeep to take this further.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. Saurabh, obviously, this is a time when you have to come in and do share with us as we talk about outsourcing resurgence, and you being involved into this sector for quite a long time and have actively helped various organizations come to the forefront. So please,
Thank you.
we'd like to listen to your views and thoughts as we go across.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sandeep ji. Thank you very much, Ravinder ji, for having me on this session. I've spent, I've essentially spent most of my career in the IT industry, and that too sourcing business from across the world. One thing that I would want to say even before I talk about specific technical data is, as Ravinder ji was emphasizing, that you have to have a mindset. Really speaking, outsourcing is as much a cultural issue as much as it is a technology or technical issue. One has to be open with the idea that work can be done from anywhere. There is expertise available across the world. One has to have the acceptance to work with a global workforce. One has to have faith with that, on your vendor or a third party organization, that they will be able to learn your processes or learn your requirements and deliver. If those basic cultural roadblocks come in, then obviously one does not embrace a concept like outsourcing, or for that matter even offshoring. Well, outsourcing has been around for years, as was beautifully exemplified around the Ramayana example. We have always worked with vendors. We have in the past, as household people, have outsourced some of the work. It starts from a house itself. When we run companies, we outsource some of the jobs which somebody else is an expertise. They either supply us with products or services. But the way we today understand outsourcing, it is primarily related to skills, expertise area, and processes. So I would just without wasting much time, and obviously I would understand the audience out here already understands what is outsourcing, offshoring is all about. I would limit my discussion and focus to talk about the future, rather not the long term future, but maybe the immediate future. The immediate future has an impact of around for COVID. The immediate future has an impact of what organizations are thinking. The immediate future has got an impact out of the limitations we have as human beings, staying locked down in our houses, or the job scenario is changing, the absence of long-term employment, the growth of what is known as the gig economy, where everybody is actually an entrepreneur and a business person selling services, is going to be utilized for what he is going to deliver. There are long-term commitments are a question mark. All these mega trends are having an impact on the outsourcing and offshoring industry as well. So I will just share my screen, and if I have, I think you need to give me the sharing rights. I think I'll just take the audience through a very brief six slide presentations about what is the environment and what is the opportunity. So I'll.
Yeah, you are the host now, Saurabh.
Sure, thank you. So I'll straight away, so my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the topic that we are discussing today is outsourcing resurgence. So obviously outsourcing has been around, and we are going to see a resurgence, and that's what many of the large, you can say, investment bankers and pundits of this industry are talking about. So where is the opportunity? Well, if outsourcing has been around, it will be around also. The shape and size or the nature of outsourcing might change. And possibly in this presentation, I'm going to try to look at outsourcing resurgence and opportunity to do business. That is what I'm sticking to. There are various other opportunities which come, out of this outsourcing resurgence. For example, consultants who are into manpower would have training opportunities, recruitment opportunities. IT service providers would want to give high-speed internet now to households. Earlier, they were only trying to do that at an office level. So the telecom industry also has an opportunity because of this mega trend. Similarly, there might be training, because now people need to be trained on etiquettes of how to operate from home. There might be other services required, because if you're busy all the time at home doing work during the daytime, and there is there is a limitation on the mobility of workers, then there are going to be service providers who are going to take away some other jobs that you were otherwise doing in-house, things like even as a household. So here is some data that I would want to share to start with. I would start with what is the mega trend that we are talking of. More often than not, the world is now referring to outsourcing in context to the IT sphere or IT enabled spheres. When I say IT spheres, obviously development of software, development of cloud-based technology, development of anything to do with IT enabled work. Similarly, even accounting today is IT enabled. So there is increasingly large number of accountants who are based out of India keeping books of small and medium businesses in the US and Australia, for example. So even though accounting was not traditionally IT driven, but it has, because of technology enablement, today you can offer out accounting services across the world. The principles of generally accepted accounting practices remains the same across the world. So you can do that. Similarly, today tutors in India are coaching American students on math. So even that is a kind of an IT enabled teaching which is happening. So IT enabled education is there. Any sphere that we can talk of is getting touched by this enablement, and that is what is going to drive this huge surge in outsourcing and offshoring, as we are referring to. Now recently, BCG, and these are data from the Boston Consulting Group survey that was done in 2021, about they picked up about 200 odd CEOs, and they talked about what is happening as far as IT outsourcing is concerned. And they said more than 50% said that we are anyway outsourcing application and software maintenance. The number of applications that are now running organizations have gone up. So we've got an application for collaboration, application for accounting, application for supply chain, application for every sphere of one's work, including HR, including, for that matter, recreation. So there are chief recreation officers and chief and employee happiness officers. Even they are using some or the other software applications. So increasingly companies are driven by IT applications. So as a result, 51, this is a no-brainer. Now, one of the other reasons is that close to half of them think that outsourcing saves them money. And this has been traditionally accepted. And in the context of offshoring to India specifically, Indian IT costs are roughly around 60%, even at inflated rates, to what it would cost to hire a same resource or same kind of process company in the US. Of course, there are pros and cons to hiring near shore, onshore, and offshore, but nevertheless, the price remains a major driver, and that will not change even for the next 20 years. Wherever customers will get the same quality or competitive quality at a better price, they will move towards that. Uh, what's very, very important thing is that one of the mega trends that we are seeing is there are already 57 freelancers working in America today. People who used to have full-time regular jobs in companies, they are now increasingly seeing that such kind of talent is available to work from home as freelancers, doing smaller gigs. Specialists are available on hourly basis. There are platforms which have emerged to hire them. Some of you might be aware, and if you are not aware, please go and check with platforms like Upwork. You can create your own profile, talk about your own experience, talk about your specific skills, and you are there in the IT marketplace. You are ready to solicit business. The cost of actually becoming business enabled in the offshoring market is coming down because there are increasingly large number of internet based platforms which allow you to freelance, allow you to operate even as a small company and solicit work from across the world. And more important than not, that what is the real driver? Once this COVID thing set in and companies normal business operations started getting disrupted, more often than not, the CEOs and the large leaderships of the company, by and large, have understood that digital is the way to go. You have to have a platform on which you can interact with your customers digitally. You have to give them a very good digital experience so that they are able to interact. Whether it's a lawyer, he is now supposed to give advice over the a digital platform. A doctor is supposed to see you over the digital platform, give you prescription, do diagnosis. Insurance companies no longer ask you to go and do a medical checkup. They do a tele session with the doctor who asks you questions, sees your reports, and he kinds of approves you for the insurance. So every sphere, what is happening is that the digital customer experience is becoming a requisite rather than a nice to have or a good to have situation. So this is essentially driving what is known as digital transformation. So the digital transformation is getting accelerated because of COVID, because of limitations COVID has imposed upon us. And that in turn is driving the outsourcing offshoring market. So really speaking, COVID is not the reason. COVID is making the digital agenda ever more important. And that is driving the offshoring and outsourcing, growth as we call it. Now, this is something that I've just covered. And why and who of outsourcing, there's a definition of it. But what I'm trying to highlight out here is that outsourcing is no longer just for companies. Outsourcing is for everybody. I, Sandeep, and Ravinder ji can form a team. We might be having our full-time day jobs or we might be working independently, but we three can come together and offer the ability to organize a seminar or outsource the webinars and seminars for a company. So even teams can do it. Similarly, there is an interesting part that not-for-profit organizations or NGOs today are increasingly becoming active in the outsourcing market. They say COVID is affecting people. There are people who are losing jobs. There are people whose normal course of livelihood is getting affected. They are skilled. We are bringing them on a digital platform. So please outsource your work to us, and we'll be help these deserving skilled people to do the processes that you otherwise were outsourcing or in-house, doing it in-house. So this is also called impact sourcing. That is no longer that outsourcing has to just improve your profit margins. You can actually do a good your social accountability improves if you outsource, and it creates a social impact as well. So obviously, every company has got cost challenges, scale, skill, and timeline challenges to be met. Offshoring or outsourcing offers that, and you do it as long as somebody else does it cheaper, faster, and better. So as long as you're cheaper and faster and better than some company doing it in-house, you have a chance of succeeding in the offshoring outsourcing market. Most importantly, you should be comfortable with, using technology for collaborations or working remotely. And more importantly, everybody ends up being happy. So that's when is important. So we have seen that the sustainability, that is the happiness with a process sustaining, uh, means that your shareholders have to be happy, your employees have to be happy, your vendors have to be happy, and the government have to be happy. So it's a complex, dynamic situation. But at the end of it, we have seen that whenever there is an economic resurgence or there is an economic slowdown, both cases down drive some or the other kind of outsourcing, either to save costs or to generate more business or to generate more taxes or to improve lending or improve, you know your risk profile. So there are various motivations, and today it is going to cover all kinds of people as stakeholders in that sphere. So here is something that is very specific to India, and I would want to probably pull your attention, is because this is where also what I'd call the success factors lie for an Indian offshoring or an outsourcing player, whether you are an individual, whether you are a new player, whether you are a company. The reasons why somebody offshores to India is obviously there is a huge weightage on lower professional wages. That means you can hire professional, but at wages which are roughly around 30 to 40% of what you would pay for a similar professional, skilled professional in your home country. The other thing is, as I mentioned, there is a huge cultural driver. When offshoring and outsourcing started, in the US, people already had faith in their Indian-born migrated engineer who was solving problems. So he was there inside the US company, and he was the one who convinced the management initially that, look, we can do this at a scale if we are only to able to be able to hire engineers from India, and I can do it in hundreds. So eventually the diaspora, that is the Indian diaspora in the US, in the UK, in a whether various developed countries, are the ones who initially started it. And as long as they have faith in the Indian skill, Indian skills or India based skills, this will continue to pull work into India. More importantly, education and skills. As long as the client side sees Indians to be educated, skilled, their ability to communicate is up to the mark, and there is a increasing number of people who are coming into the employable scale. That is, as you know, India's employable population is probably the highest in the world. We have more people under the age of 25. So that gives them the faith that if I need 100 engineers to become my dedicated offshore development site, which is the country I need to go? uh, Eastern Europe, yes, skills are there, communications maybe not so good, but again, the major limitation is numbers. If I have to have 100, I will not find it in Eastern Europe. I have to come to India, Philippines, and say, even some of the South American countries to hire people if I need to scale. What are the obstacles? The obstacles continue to be the infrastructure. One of the major complaints that outsourcing companies or offshoring companies has about India is that, telecommunication, that is your broadband speed, India continues to be in the low bracket as far as internet speed is concerned. And similarly, even though you might have internet, there are continued urban outages in electricity. So this is one of the irritants that they have. Of course, the ease of starting a business in India online, you cannot do that unless you have somebody in India working for you to start a business for India. But for example, I as a entrepreneur today can open up a company in the US without visiting the US. I can open up a bank account in US without visiting the US. I can open up, my website, hire people, become tax compliant without actually visiting that country. So unless we build that kind of mobility in terms of ease of doing business across the world, uh, large investors would continue to face some challenges as well as coming to India and starting businesses is concerned. So this way, we also know that if I am a small business, I have to hire professionals competitively. I have to have, leverage some of my connections abroad to get my first break. I have to probably ensure that my skill levels of my employees are globally competitive. If I meet these pull factors and I'm able to handle the major obstacles involved in running the business, there is a fair bit of chance of getting a good customer from one of the developed companies as for my service offerings. So I straight away come to the what I was trying to emphasize, that earlier it was called work from home. And some of you, I would try to refresh your memory about that. Very, maybe just before the COVID was there, in Delhi, for example, we had WeWork coming in and it was a big news. We had increasing number of what is called shared office space. You don't require to hire an office full time. You could hire a shared office space, go and pay per seat, you get good coffee. And this is a cultural activity which was happening. This was essentially driven from the idea that increasingly workers are going to be mobile. So work from anywhere actually came before work from home. Because we could not work from anywhere, we started working from home. But increasingly, both these models would coexist. So mobile applications as well as enablement to work from home would increase. To if I would just want to draw your attention to some of the facts in the Indian stock market, for example, TCS, which is India's largest IT company, reported record profits last year. 20 that is the last financial year, primarily driven because they had no more infrastructure costs for a variety of processes. For example, a large number of Bombay-based offices of TCS are no longer, the leases have been cancelled, they've been given back to realtors, and the workers have now the option to go work from anywhere. Many of them have gone back to work from their hometowns. They continue to earn their metro salaries, yet they are very happy, as I mentioned, because they can work now from their home. The company gives them enablement to work from home. They give them furniture, they give them laptops, they pay their a part of the electricity bill and other maintenance costs for working from home. And they found out that this is a much more profitable way. Customers also have accommodated these changes. Now, if I go to a little more of what's happening around the world, is that companies have realized the concept of resilience. That means we have to not only look at strategic options, but technology has to be resilient. The ability to switch from work from home to back to office, to moving from one country to the other, to start up customer portals or applications when situation changes in the environment, all these have made them realize that technology has to become resilient to changes that are happening in the world, including climate changes, including, say, for example, something like what was happening in Delhi when there was pollution in Punjab, and because of that, smoke caused delays in traffics in Delhi and smog. That has an impact of some of the deliveries. So, people would want that their employees or their vendors' employees are also safe and resilient at the same time. And of course, the digital transformation agenda continues to actually grow. So the three important aspects as well as opportunities that are there is that if you are providing some service which is enabling your customers to do business digitally, if your technology is cloud based, and you're increasingly adopting AL and ML, that is, artificial intelligence and machine learning, or artificial learning as I call it, uh, you would continue to have some future and some opportunities in outsourcing. People say that, look, there is no future for IT because everything is going to be taken by machines. Well, these machines have to be trained. So who is training these machines? For example, there is now a machine to identify whether apple is rotten or it is not rotten. Human beings have to train it. More than often, all these AI training activities are actually being done in India, not by highly skilled workers, but average data entry operators who are essentially identifying and labeling a rotten apple and labeling a healthy apple from images. Now, all this data in volume is going and training a model, AI model or a machine learning model to identify that. So this machine will ultimately probably work in supermarkets. But at the end of it, it's human outsourcing which is powering this transition to AI and ML. And that itself, for example, AI training data is one of the big drivers now in the BPO industry, which is right now moving away from call centers and is focusing on these kinds of technologies actually. Well, it's a vast subject and there is a lot of discussions that we can do around it. But what I'm trying to emphasize is the lowest common multiple, the LCMs of this entire equation. So here is what is the opportunity, and this is again I refer to what are the big opportunities of business. So there is, because of access to greater range of talent, now I can hire employees across the world. Even Indian organizations are going ahead and are hiring workers in Philippines, workers in Colombia, workers in Mexico, so that they kind of mimic what was happening earlier only for large outsourcing companies like Infosys and TCS. So for example, I run a Microsoft delivery center, and I've been able to hire consultants who can speak Spanish, but they are based in Mexico. What does it give me and do for me as a business? America has got a large number of Hispanic population people, customers or clients who speak Spanish or do their business in Spanish. Because I was always English and I had limitations on English, I was missing out on that market. But hiring somebody from Mexico suddenly makes my India-based business enabled to do business with Mexican-speaking customers. So I today have options to hire greater amount of talent across the world. Similarly, there is a greater focus on core areas for customers, yet at the same time, they want greater control over workers. So cybersecurity is one of the major investment areas for companies. They would want their data to be secured. They would want their work to be secured. They want more control over how much time is being put onto their work. Is the risks taken mitigated? So that's the 55% of CEOs interviewed said that this is the number one priority in the current situation. We want our environment, our IT computing environment, to be secure. Obviously, this cannot happen unless there is cloud migration, and of course, the digital transformation and agenda continues to be, an all-important aspect. There's something that down the line in the last part of the list. There's something known as crowdsourced innovation. Now, crowdsourced innovation is essentially one of the ways in which large, IT consulting companies have typically solved problems. Different cultures have different, attitudes towards different problems. Because of the enablement of IT, I today can find a solution from different cultures. So maybe the Japanese have solved my problem in much more innovative way. For example, we are facing some problems related to communication or sharing information. There might be some other example in the world which can be utilized to solve my problems in India. It's the same thing for the US customer, same thing from the UK customer. So increasingly, something which was very, very intellectual is also coming onto the IT platform. And that is being enabled by what are known as collaboration softwares. Collaboration, idea boards where people from across the world can contribute to solving a problem. If you've heard of things like hackathon, where people hack a problem, hackathon earlier were, maybe local events, maybe, cyber events, located in one geography. But increasingly, these are becoming global events where developers from across the world are trying to have an attempt into solving a problem which is faced by one of the economies. So these kind of technology solutions or technology work areas driven by the reasons on the left are what is actually the real opportunity drivers post COVID. So these are what I called my major data points. And obviously what I've not covered in this particular talk is specific pertinent questions. How do I start a business in this environment?
Right. This is what exactly sort of I was coming to
Right.
as I was listening to your presentation.
Right.
A very pertinent question is for any entrepreneur, how do we start a business around offshore outsourcing in the current context of the current environment?
Okay.
If you can throw some light to it.
Yes. So very important questions. How do I start and where do I start from? Actually speaking, the world is becoming transparent, and the first thing that I would ask any entrepreneur and professional, I limit the discussion to those kinds of people, is that I, as a small medium business entrepreneur or a person who's starting a business, the first place to start with is probably your LinkedIn profile, because increasingly your LinkedIn profile will the first, what is called the first source of truth whenever you actually start presenting yourself. People today check up your LinkedIn profile to know it talks about your professional experience, it talks about how you present yourself. It is your persona, digital persona, in a way. Why I'm talking about LinkedIn is primarily because it's a professional social network. uh, People can talk about other things also,
Right.
Facebook, etc., but from business perspective, yes, people do that. The second thing is to create your profiles in various outsourcing offshoring forums and platforms. I've mentioned
I
about
see.
one of them in my discussions here. One of them is Upwork. Uh, Upwork is focused around digital technology. It's focused around software development. There are similar platforms for accounting, similar platforms for training and education. Uh, it's good that you start talking about internationally relevant topics in your profiles as well. So, for example, if you are an accountant and you would want to offer your services, your knowledge around generally accepted practices, your ability to your ability to understand multinational accounting, transfer pricing, or those kinds of aspects which are pertinent to international customers, if you highlight them in your profile, that's, I think, is one of the most important aspects. The Upwork, for example, Upwork is one of the platforms, and I give an example because so much of transactions are happening in the current stage on Upwork itself, is that you can actually bid for uh, you know opportunities which are listed out there. So anybody who is probably having a project to outsource or offshore would typically describe the project. You would bid for it. Some of these bids are paid bids. Some of them are free bids. They welcome anybody. Some of them are for individuals. Some of them for companies. And so you also receive invites in your in mailbox, if the profile seems to be close to what the client is looking for. So this is typically a marketplace. Upwork is a marketplace, and it allows you to build your profile and start bidding for offshoring products. Believe it or not, even few of the large companies also use Upwork to bid for enterprise grade projects. you know there are some other platforms also. If you're an individual expert, there is a platform called as Fiverr. There are hundreds of such uh, uh, such platforms,
Numerous platforms.
numerous platforms, to the extent that I've seen Indian entrepreneurs also listing their service in Craigslist. There is a platform called G2 Crowd, which is which is you can say a showcase uh, site for your skills and also the recommendations that you have from potential customers. It is a marketplace where you go to find out how what has been your reputation. Similarly, there is platform sites like uh, Good Business Directory. There are business directories across the US. Some of them you might not even have heard on India, but you start listing yourself out there, which is very, very important. The other thing is that you using LinkedIn can also start prospecting what are known as people who are into the business of managing global vendors. Believe me, just as we need business, global vendors also need suppliers. They also believe in what is known as supplier diversification or supplier risk mitigation. So if they have a very important process, they will never depend on one or two suppliers. They will always try to have new suppliers who have new skills, new cost benefits to them. So you can possibly look at various kinds of forums. I'm getting asked questions already on these names. So anyway, I will try to follow up with a list of these things. But
So,
yes, you can start looking up to these forums. LinkedIn also, there is a very, very important aspect of this business development. Like the way we have succeeded is that, for example, I sell to Microsoft ecosystem. So there are various groups of Microsoft professionals, and I join those groups and I start talking about my expertise, and my posts have to be there. So this is kind of soft selling. But because of the network that I start developing there, I get to ask questions. I can start with polls and I say, what will make you outsource or not make you an outsource a particular work? What are your acceptance criteria for giving out work? Your keenness and the persistence are two important aspects of getting offshoring and outsourcing work. Believe it or not, US is most receptive, and UK, Australia kind of conservative. It is a cultural issue. It's about believing whether somebody else in the world has got more expertise or not. The more diverse, for example, there is a difference in culture between London and a smaller town in the UK when it comes to outsourcing. So if you keep research a little more about your customers, you'll probably know that what this kind of, what this business is all about, and how they are outsourcing. There is an increasing trend towards using what are known as sales intelligence tools. That means there are specific dedicated companies who are trying to identify what are the business opportunities in an account. Uh, you might have heard of a platform called as Zoom Info. You will not only get the contact information of key executives in those companies, you will get some trending data related to their purchase behavior, or what is that they are looking for. So you can start pitching to them. There is no shame in pitching. Let me tell you, salesmanship is about failing more often than succeeding. So you just have to do calculated guesses. You have to organize the data that you have, and then you have to probably start pitching in. Believe it or not, your first or two, three pitches will never be successful. But the fact is that the immense amount of experience you will gain out of that interaction would be very, very important, in terms of succeeding the next time. Uh,
Very important.
some of the times you can actually be very well off by subcontracting from a current offshore vendor. For example, I do get approached by people who want to get into offshoring outsourcing, and there is always some overflow work, and I'm always stretched where I have to probably hire somebody, and he might be doing an offshore work for the first time in his life. I have to just be a little more, you know what I could call, prescriptive to him in his approach. But once I do that, he has an experience, it gives him the confidence to start doing that kind of work on his own, or communicate on his own, and get the work done. So the opportunities are immense. I mean, we can talk for hours, and I'm ready to share as much information I can do to help out people out here.
Gaurav, at this stage, before I come to Mr. Goel, one more thing which struck me when you're talking about how we start this business, are there any prerequisite to starting and getting business opportunities?
Uh,
What would be the prerequisites, if there
uh,
are any?
See, basically, you should be able to accept international payment, because you are doing it after all, you are doing this for getting paid at the end of the job, right? Similarly, more important than not, in the US, for example, there are prerequisites. Customers will ask you for a W-9 form, which is essentially tax information. So similarly, in different geographies, there might be some tax compliances that you might have to look at. But if you're getting business from Upwork, for example, and these platforms, you do not have any prerequisites. You can create a profile without having a tax ID. You just need your own. You can start today. You can get your savings bank to get linked with your Upwork, and you can start working. So really speaking, there is no
Major.
threshold. Yeah, no threshold to cross. uh, yes, you should be able to present yourself effectively. That's most important.
That's true. That's true. At this juncture, a very important point which comes up as we have been talking to entrepreneurs and different people who want to get into this field. I would request Mr. Goel, because Mr. Goel, you have been interacting with various entrepreneurs in the last 3 to 4 months. And obviously, I will follow up with Saurabh on this. What kind of outsourcing jobs specifically do we look at coming into India? Mr. Goel, if you can unmute and share your experiences which you have been, yeah, please.
You see, today when we talk about outsourcing, it is not only we are talking about the international outsourcing or going global, even the local trends of outsourcing is also
Right.
quite picking up. People there are quite long we see that manufactured by and marketed by or imported by or marketed by. You see today the companies are not making products; they are getting it manufactured from someone. Now the kind of knowledge bank we are creating, or the knowledge bank it has been created over last 2 decades. You talk about anything pharma, like we used to get medicines from outside. Today we are manufacturing the medicines, and probably this is COVID first time that we are exporting medicines in the crisis phase. So India probably can export right from a plumber to the world, from creating a molecule or a medicine, or maybe exporting the technology, science technology, or maybe aerospace technology, anything. Today, if you look at, we are carrying the payloads of satellites of other countries, where in past we used to wait for that. So
Right.
when we talk about outsourcing, what we can do, like what we cannot do, is the probably the question. We can do everything now, technology wise, knowledge capital wise, or maybe the skill wise, manpower, anything and everything can be done. It's only that, as Saurabh just said, that you have to create a profile. The problem, only thing I see with the people around, is they do not explore themselves first. People just want to go ahead with something, and they go semi prepared. They are not
So
fully
true.
prepared. When if you have one skill set, or if you have team of two people, and so probably you have to narrow down your skills to build up your profile. The profile, by just putting up information on LinkedIn, probably may not attract business, or may attract business, but that will be very short time. So first you have to focus on one area. You have to show that yes, you have done good job, you have done good, you have come out with good results. So today, right from like as Saurabh was talking about online tutoring, probably you remember the Ganesh Meena tutor Vista.com. They were doing
Right.
it almost 15 years back. So today, every teacher who is probably doing the part-time job, now instead of earning in rupees, they are earning in dollars.
Yep.
uh, the art designers, or maybe like today we see the art galleries online, painters who are doing good paintings, now they are doing paintings and selling it in dollars. You
True.
take example of YouTubers. Now there are people who are actually, that is also an outsourcing of knowledge. When you are creating something here and you are becoming globally famous, so anything and everything can be done. It's only that you have to recognize yourself first.
That's very important. That's very important. And for entrepreneurs, is a very key thing that today, any sector which we are interacting with, as Mr. Goel rightly pointed out, it is within the country also. That's sort of I have seen large companies handling outsourced work for telecom operations in Delhi, all across Noida, Gurgaon, everywhere. There's a huge outsourcing which is happening in this space. So that segment happens to be very, very active when we talk about outsourcing in the country. Coming back to Saurabh, would you like to expand on what Mr. Goel mentioned? Like what kind of outsourcing jobs can come to India or what is coming to India?
See, believe me, every line, as long as you have got expertise, and as I said, you can do it faster, better, cheaper, and everybody has their own criteria for it. Expertise is what you are selling, and really speaking, there are no boundaries of countries now which are going to exist. uh, as long as you have to be globally competitive, you have to be aware that nobody will give you work just because you're cheaper. You have to be as good as something which is globally available. Nobody will give work because you are just from India and can speak good English. At the end of it, those points are all getting diluted. So if my deliverables are all good, and if I'm globally competitive, and I see myself as a global citizen, I can converse with peoples across culture, and I am able to be okay with pluses and minuses of my personality, and yet work with somebody else. We can continue to we can we can continue to do business across the world.
So if I've got you right, these are possible challenges which
Right.
I should be ready to.
ready to. And yeah, people should not. Most important, I think it is to do with also to do with you know people get discouraged when they don't get results.
Right.
So outsourcing takes time to get results because you are working for customers across the world. You are not working with a customer based out of India. So obviously there are challenges involved in that. But if you start exploring and spending more time and you try to compete, you will sooner or later understand it and you would crack it. It will take a little more time, but that's all I'm saying is so
While
any
we are
kind of
raising,
work can will have a market in India, actually speaking. You know.
great. While we go to the next question, anybody, if you have any queries, you can unmute and ask that question, or you can put it on the chat box. If anybody has any questions or any queries to ask to Saurabh on this. Saurabh, while we wait for the questions to come, or if anybody wants to speak up, there was one pertinent question which I was discussing with also before the session. In fact, we have been hearing that Philippines is in competition with India in terms of a lot of outsourcing.
Yes.
Why I'm bringing this in is this, I won't say debate, but this question do crops up.
Yes.
Are they competing with us?
Yes.
So I'm putting the question to you first, and obviously I will request Mr. Goel to also share it with us on this. So, Saurabh, what is your take on this?
Yes, we are not just, India is not just competing with Philippines. India is competing with a lot of countries in Eastern Europe as well, and India is also competing with South America. So, but you know, these challenges are not people tend to categorize this problem or this entire thing as a country specific problem. Fact is that international companies have outsourcing centers or delivery centers across Philippines. They like TCS has a center in in Philippines. They have a center in India. They have a center in Mexico. So they are able. It doesn't really matter. But say, for example, uh, when it comes to the mid market or the small and medium enterprises, there is essentially competition, and more often than not, it is because of costs, because of scalability. So, for example, uh, there is a particular skill. If the skill is already available, say for example medical transcription, let's put it this way, right? So if there were large outsourcing companies in medical transcription in India, and people have got trained there and today are freelancers out there, India will have the scale and options as well as cost advantage vis-a-vis Philippines, who would have an advantage on something known as markup language, or for that matter, even for that matter, call center, because they are located in a time zone which is very, very convenient for the West Coast people to do business with. For us, if we have to handle a call center which is going to do business with the US West Coast, it comes to around midnight in India, and we have to pay more wages to be competitive, to keep manpower and scale. So there are various factors to it. It is just because the global media presents it as a country specific problem that there is an issue. But otherwise, it is like any other business competition area. Like, how would you compete with any other company in India? It's all the same factors, whether you can do it smarter, better, cheaper. So we have to start looking at the problem in the right manner. It has got nothing to do with the country, actually speaking.
Got it. Mr. Goel, if you can share your experiences, like we have been facing similar questions and queries which have been coming across with Philippines as a focus area.
You see, I'll say that after China, we are the second largest population in the world. So, no country can compete India technically in terms of numbers. So, outsourcing is all about numbers. So, I don't see any competition. I don't see any competition anybody can do. China has a language problem. So, they are also not our competitors because biologically, their accent or the phonetic, the way they speak, cannot be neutralized. So I don't see any reason that India can be competitive. We are our own competitors. The reason being that you see one outsource setup, and the next day one of his employee comes out and start doing something. and they are not trained. So we lose our market because of the delivery feedbacks. We lose our market because of various negative feedbacks comes from the customers. Like sometime back, there was a theft of data. There is some misappropriation of various information. So, and it happens across. So some people will say that the government is not supporting us. Government has never supported you in doing business. It is you who have to find out the opportunities. Uh, People say that infrastructure is good in China or maybe some other places. Across, it is the entrepreneur who basically comes out with an idea, works out on something, and deliver it. So you will have
Right.
10 people working on the same idea. 9 may not success, but yes, one out of them will definitely have a great success. And as we are not in tens or hundreds or thousands, we are in crores. So Philippine or maybe countries like Philippines probably cannot think of competing. Yes,
In terms
as
of
a
money.
time zone benefit or some part of, because like companies like TCS, I mean, they really cannot isolate themselves and to remain in India only, that all the work will be done from India. So, due to geographical reach, we have to have places, different countries, we have to have our offices, but that is not to be taken as a competition, I think.
No, I agree because when we talk about global opportunities, the markets are global. Resources, as sort of shared, like he has been recruiting, resources are global, opportunities are global. So it has to be seen in a holistic context. It's no more about a geography. It's about an opportunity. It's about the availabilities of digital platform and applications which are making all these things possible. To be aware of it, create a new opportunity as the world changes at this juncture, and to be ready to change, right? So, Saurabh, would you like to make any point? Anything you
No,
want to add at this stage?
I think this is a pretty large discussion area of outsourcing and offshoring. But
Very much,
given
very much,
that what we are
very much.
discussing, I think it's a good starting point, and one can reach out to me through you
Sure.
or through this forum, through Panacea, for
Anybody
example,
needs
and
further information, yeah,
I'm ready
can
to
write
help
to
that out.
us,
Yeah,
call us up, or send us the information.
yeah, we can
We'll
help
be
you get
very glad.
started. We can help you get started.
Sure. Since we don't have any further questions, I think we will wrap up the show. Thanks, Saurabh, so much for your time and making yourself available at this point of the day
Sure.
among your busy schedule. Thank you so much. We
Thank
look
you very
forward
much.
to detailed and advanced sessions.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Goel.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
everybody, for joining us. And see you all till the next Saturday. Thank you.